Transmigrated as a disabled protagonist, how should I continue the script? Chapter 21, The Cost of Treatment. Before searching for Rokudo Mukuro, Dazai Osamu got in touch with another illusionist broker. To be precise, the person was responsible for handling transactions between both parties. That's correct. The world is so vast, and illusionists are not in short supply, but Rokudo Mukuro could be said to be the one illusionist with no background. Precisely for this reason, the special division prioritized recommending Rokudo Mukuro to Dazai Osamu, even intending to use intel about Vongola Decimo as leverage to recruit this man, who despises the Italian mafia. At present, Japan lacks illusionist, and the Japanese government is highly eager for someone who can master the art of illusion. Having an illusionist is akin to possessing someone with excellent control over psychic abilities. Everyone knows that when a psychic ability user loses control, the result is a disaster. Yumino Kyusaku is the best example of this. Despite possessing destructive power, he was still sealed away by the organization, not allowed to roam free and disrupt societal stability. In terms of stability, an illusionist surpasses a psychic ability user by a large margin. The Japanese government is closely monitoring the unique nature of Rokudo Mukuro, who is the result of human experimentation, showing no loyalty to Italy. Inevitably, valuable experimental data remains within him. Moreover, the Japanese government has little dealings with the Italy's mafia. No matter how the internal conflict in the Vongola family unfolds, once they protect their own, it's like feeding the fat meat directly into their mouths. Dazai Osamu quickly understood the roundabout nature of these matters, his thoughts spinning rapidly, no less cunning than those seasoned old foxes. He specifically sought out a broker because he intended to achieve his goal indirectly. Name your price. Before him stood a figure who was refreshingly detached from the world, a person who worked solely for money, the one and only master illusionist, Maman, of the Italy-based Vongola family, Varia's independent assassination squad's mist guardian, a top-tier illusionist. The broker coldly replied over the phone, for a one-time illusion setup, the starting price is $2 million. Depending on the size of the location and complexity, the price may increase. For a one-time assassination using illusions, the starting price is $5 million, with the number of targets and difficulty affecting the cost. For a one-time memory alteration, the starting price is $8 million. Dazai Osamu decisively and fluently asked, "Why is everything single-use?" The broker responded, "The illusion is connected to the illusionist when it's performed. Using it once reassures both parties." Furthermore, the broker, hearing the overly youthful voice of the client on the phone, became suspicious. "Sir, you're contacting me as a member of the Japanese port mafia. May I ask what position you're in, and who are you working for?" Dazai Osamu, borrowing authority, replied, "Mori-san is my legal guardian." The broker, with a bit of imagination, understood that Mori-san referred to Mori Ogai, but anything more specific was unclear. The port mafia was in a period of chaos. The illusionist is accepting a commission to treat the body, right? Dazai Osamu didn't beat around the bush. The broker, upon hearing this, became less enthusiastic. "Maman-san is the top illusionist of the era. Healing the body is no joke. Every year, countless wealthy individuals with failing body parts flock to him like a herd of ducks. His prices are extremely high, so I wouldn't recommend making such a large transaction on your first deal." Dazai Osamu thought to himself, "Are you underestimating the Japanese port mafia, or are you underestimating Mori-san's financial resources?" Mori Ogai, working tirelessly at the port mafia headquarters. He really doesn't have any money. How much? Dazai Osamu calmly gave the broker a bit of confidence. "Are you sure you want to proceed with this transaction, sir? I must inform you, creating an artificial heart with this structure, calculated by time units, will cost no less than $1 million. The broker, after repeatedly confirming his intentions, took a deep breath and said, "Please wait a moment. I cannot make the decision on this deal." "Moo, are you the one looking for me, the new client?" A few minutes later, a new voice came through the microphone, speaking in slightly strange Japanese. After this encounter with the port mafia, Dazai-Osamu's pupils slightly contracted upon hearing the name Arcobaleno. Could the rumored curse that shrinks people truly exist? The person speaking had a voice that was both childish and cold. Physical body parts repair is accepted, but no brain, no eyes, no ears, and nothing related to functional abilities. No guarantee that the illusion will remain effective. If it loses effectiveness, only half the treatment cost will be refunded. This string of refusals snapped Dazai-Osamu back to reality. Dazai-Osamu couldn't help but glance at Yakimaru, who had also been judged as cursed. Once again, the black-haired youth, having just completed another demon slaying, sheathed his sword. Today, his kimono had transformed into one with a black goldfish pattern, the sash tied securely around his waist, while the bandages on his chest were exposed. The contrast added both a sense of restraint and an extra touch of wild, murderous recklessness. In just one short month, the number of evil entities in Yokohama that could be counted on one hand were completely slain by Yakimaru. Things like the earthbound spirits that are invisible to the naked eye and other demons and monsters had all vanished without a trace, leaving the air even a little cleaner. Those things, attracted by Yokohama's aura of death, hadn't even had the chance to take root before they were so terrified by Yakimaru, who frequently roamed the city, that they fled overnight. To the monsters, Yakimaru was far more bizarre and terrifying than many of the great demons that had trained for years. A being that resembled a human yet was not human. Dazai-Osamu collected his thoughts and asked, "Maman-san, it's really impressive that you speak Japanese so well. The brain is the most complex part of the human body, so not accepting that is understandable, but why not the eyes and ears as well?" In Italy, while coincidentally in contact with a broker, Maman leisurely floated in midair, counting money in his hand as he spoke to his phone. When it comes to sensory organs, no illusionist would easily take that risk, and those who dare to accept it. The baby beneath the triangular hood smiled darkly. "I can guarantee they're nothing but third-rate trash from who knows where." Illusions affect the five senses of a person, so isn't it logically contradictory to cure the five senses? A person lacking one or more of the five senses is essentially immune to the effects of illusions. The five senses? Dazai-Osamu pondered the illusionist's weakness, but understood what Maman's meant was that they wouldn't easily accept such a case. It didn't mean they couldn't do it, this was a sign of supreme confidence from a top-tier illusionist. "May I ask, beyond the five senses, what about body parts like limbs, or internal organs?" "Accepts." Maman agreed without hesitation. How much money can one make by carrying out an assassination these days? Still, earning extra from this kind of income surely brings in even more money. Money-loving Maman seemed to envision this spendthrift handing him a huge wad of cash, US dollars rustling as they poured toward him. His tone rose a few notches. "How long are we talking, days, months, or years?" Dazai-Osamu. "So, this is a membership subscription plan." Without any further trouble, Dazai-Osamu used his emotional intelligence to calm Maman down, leaving a way out for himself, ensuring Maman didn't realize that he, in fact, didn't have a single US dollar on him. After finishing this phone call, Dazai-Osamu deeply felt how poor he truly was. Why didn't I realize before how important money is? No. Money had always been important, it's just that he had never worked consistently, so he didn't care much about material conditions. "Yakimaru, let me auction you off just once," Dazai-Osamu said with full enthusiasm. "Someone would definitely want to take care of someone like you. I'll sell you at a high price, then get you back. After a few rounds, I'll have enough money to cover the cost of treating your limbs and spine." "Huh? Where are you going so quickly?" Yakimaru walked in a direction that seemed endless, and before they realized it, they had arrived at the Yokohama Chinatown area at the foot of the mountain. This area was rich with over 200 specialty restaurants run by Chinese families, and the streets were bustling with tourists and pedestrians. Together with Kobe Nankin Maji and Nagasaki Shinchi Chinatown, it was known as one of Japan's 3 major Chinatowns. Aren't you afraid of crowded places? Dazai-Osamu, tired from walking, had taken off his black coat, as the heat was unbearable. He rested his chin on Yakimaru's shoulder, exhaling as he tiptoed to get a better look ahead. Wow, so many tourists here. Are they all just shopping and eating? Yakimaru was similarly startled by the crowd. He simply followed the light of the life flames by instinct, and soon saw a dense cluster of flames ahead. A campfire banquet? Humans used their life force to ignite the darkness, illuminating the world. The flames filled the area with life and vitality, a grand spectacle that deeply shook the strange and solitary Yakimaru. Since when had he become a part of the crowd, able to feel genuine joy from within while standing in the bustling streets? Speaking of food, Dazai-Osamu was also hungry, urging, "Let's go over there." Yakimaru stood there, frozen. Fire. Too big. Dazai-Osamu was in charge of pushing this stubborn individual forward, as if playing with a puppet. He pushed one step, the other would take one step, their movements uncoordinated, giving passers-by the impression of two young men sulking at each other. Only Dazai-Osamu understood him, and even wanted to knock some sense into this eccentric companion. As a friend, he thought. His actions shouldn't be wrong, right? From choosing the restaurant to entering the private booth for a meal, Dazai-Osamu was careful not to provoke the waitstaff. Teasing Yakimaru was amusing, but what would it mean for strangers to see Yakimaru's appearance? What right did ordinary people have to pity Yakimaru? Is this a soup dumpling? Dazai-Osamu picked up a steaming dumpling with his chopsticks and popped it into his mouth. No, there's broth inside, it's a soup-filled dumpling. Across from him, Yakimaru moved his mask upward, relaxing his stiff posture under the partition of the private booth. He ran his hand along the back of the chair and scooted forward a bit. Dazai-Osamu, using the shared chopsticks, placed a slightly cooled dumpling in front of Yakimaru's teeth. Yakimaru instinctively opened his mouth to bite the food, only to have Dazai-Osamu tap his teeth with the chopsticks. "You can't bite it, the broth will spill out." Yakimaru paused for a moment, then adjusted by opening his mouth wider, finishing the entire wet bun, somewhat uncomfortable with being fed. He had always been self-sufficient, as his adoptive father had taught him to learn to live independently. Dazai-Osamu tapped his teeth lightly again. Chew. Dororo, eating like this is troublesome. If Yakimaru had a face, at this moment he would have been crying, unable to resist Dororo's demands. After a few more rounds, Dazai-Osamu smugly said, "I knew you'd understand what I meant." Such a super smart puppet. If only he'd behave a little more, and stop pretending to be completely clueless, it would be perfect. After finishing a satisfying meal at the Chinese restaurant, Dazai-Osamu poked his head out from the booth and asked the server for 2 bamboo skewers. On one skewer, he wrote, "Maman," and on the other, "Rokudo Mukuro." He then placed both skewers within Yakimaru's reach and, with great enthusiasm, started playing a lottery game. "Yakimaru, you pick one. The one on the left demands money, and the one on the right takes a life." Maman loves wealth, and only an enormous amount of US dollars could satisfy his appetite. Meanwhile, Rokudo Mukuro had destroyed the mafia family, likely wanting nothing less than the life of Vangala Decimo. Dazai-Osamu, neither afraid of losing money nor his life, spoke with a deep meaning. "I've noticed that your luck has always been quite good, much better than mine. It's as if the heavens themselves don't want anything bad to happen to you. Why not make the decision yourself? Which illusionist can help you restore your body?" Yakimaru stared straight at him, though his gaze slightly drifted off Dazai-Osamu's trajectory. Dazai-Osamu, puzzled, asked, "What are you looking at?" He looked around and realized that the other was seemingly gazing at the entrance to the main hall, where a statue of the Bodhisattva of Compassion was enshrined, facing north while sitting southward, far from the diners. In Japan, Buddhism is widespread, and most people know a few names of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. However, this Chinese restaurant displayed a statue of Guan Yin, the Bodhisattva of Compassion. In his heart and mind, Yakimaru, through the gaps in the hollow wooden box beside him, saw a gold-plated bodhisattva statue. Despite being placed in a slaughterhouse-like environment such as a dining hall, the statue, under years of worship by the owner, remained untouched by the filth and grease, exuding a peaceful and serene aura, blessing the faithful. This form. Is it a bodhisattva statue? The lifeless object emitted a faint green glow, reminding him of the many times he had seen a similar bodhisattva statue in his hallucinations. The statue of child-giving Guanyin holding a child, placed atop an altar, had protected him at crucial moments. If you want to take a closer look, I'll take you over there. Dazai Osamu helped him put on the mask and retrieved the bamboo skewer. When Yakimaru entered the main hall of the Chinese restaurant, there was already a diner who had finished their meal and was praying to the bodhisattva. The person was dressed in a crimson traditional outfit, with a graceful figure, using a fan to partially cover her face, though her feminine allure was still hard to conceal. As she turned to leave, she nearly bumped into Yakimaru, but Dazai Osamu raised his hand to intervene. The back of his hand accidentally brushed against her delicate skin, sending a subtle shiver through him. Dazai Osamu had seen beautiful women before, but rarely had he been so easily electrified by one. He was still young and hadn't yet reached the age where he found himself interested in young women. This young lady. He glanced at the woman in the qipao whose face was unclear, with a hint of curiosity. What's going on? Was he seeing things? It seemed like he saw something faint and indistinct on the back of her fan. Yakimaru suddenly grabbed his hand, squeezing it hard enough to hurt. Dazai Osamu let out a sharp tisk. A statue of Bodhisattva. In the place that they was about to worship. The compassionate statue of Guanyin Bodhisattva was shattered, its gold paint peeling off in patches, and its head fell from a great height. Thud, the sound of the hard object rolling was unmistakably clear. The decapitated head of Guanyin rolled down, neck and head severed, stopping right at Yakimaru's feet, almost as if replaying the scene of his birth. Dazai Osamu's gaze darkened. However, he quickly calmed down and communicated with the shop owner, clearing the suspicion that he and Yakimaru had damaged the Bodhisattva statue. This seemed like a minor incident. Dazai Osamu had no interest in strolling around Chinatown and took a cab back to Mori-san's clinic. Yakimaru wasn't in a great mood. He had wanted to pay respects to the Bodhisattva to express his gratitude for saving his life, but the statue shattered into pieces in his eyes. Later that evening, as he returned to work, Mori Ogai changed back into his white coat and scratched his head. What happened to Yaki-kun? Going to Chinatown, he got spooked. Dazai Osamu, holding a catnip stick he found somewhere, used the feather at the tip to scratch his companion, but was ignored by Yakimaru, who usually cooperated with him. Yakimaru hugged his knees, sitting on a chair, with his face turned away from Mori Ogai. Mori Ogai asked with a hint of amusement, still not used to my presence after all this time? Dazai Osamu casually replied, perhaps when Mori-san stops killing people, Yakimaru might accept you. Mori Ogai didn't respond to the comment, only letting out a small chuckle as he leaned against his desk. Dazai Osamu moved closer to Yakimaru, their foreheads nearly touching. They had escaped the surveillance at home. He handed 2 skewers over to the other. Pick one. Under the influence of Dazai Osamu's life flame, Yakimaru no longer dwelled on those past memories, which could hardly be called good. Is Dororo trying to comfort me? What is this in my hand? The black-haired boy, confused, drew one of the skewers. What kind of game is this? Dazai Osamu, satisfied with his idea of making Yakimaru draw lots, took it and saw, as expected, it was Rokudo Mukuro. Surprising, yet somehow it made sense. In order to get Maman to restore Yakimaru's limbs, spine, and even let him attempt to heal his 5 senses, Dazai Osamu might have to pay an astronomical price, possibly hundreds of millions of US dollars annually. Too expensive, far beyond what 14-year-old Dazai Osamu could afford. Trust him. Even Mori-san couldn't come up with that. The Port Mafia left Mori Ogai with a financially crippled organization, an empty weapons division, and various urgent, tangled situations. Perhaps in the future, Dazai Osamu could earn it back, but inevitably, his hands would be stained with darkness. Leave it to me. Dazai Osamu snapped the bamboo skewer, casually tossing it back into the bag. Yakimaru hugged his knees and looked at him, his breath gently swirling around. Dazai Osamu could hear the sound of breathing behind the mask, no longer anxious, as if their hearts had both calmed down. Their world was just that small, that quiet. Dazai Osamu suddenly felt that the woman in the qipao he saw during the day didn't seem as beautiful as Yakimaru. A delicate flower carrying poison. The only thing that wouldn't hurt him was the puppet reaching out toward him. Yakimaru, try to restore your face soon. Dazai Osamu reached over and brushed the bangs covering the other's face back, revealing the entire mask, falsely beautiful. But he didn't find anything wrong with feeling false. Aesthetic enhancement, up. The next day, a new statue of the Bodhisattva of Compassion appeared in the clinic. Mori Ogai, knocking on the wall here and there, temporarily set up an altar for the offering and asked him with a puzzled tone. Why do you want to offer a statue of the Bodhisattva of Compassion in the clinic? Yakimaru likes it. After directing the Port Mafia's boss, Dazai Osamu smiled at Mori Ogai, but not as deceitfully as usual. Mori Ogai sighed, Dazai-kun, I'm impressed. You put more effort into caring for a nearly broken puppet than most do for their cats or dogs. I thought you'd lose interest in him pretty quickly. Dazai Osamu, pretending not to know, pulled Yakimaru over to look at the statue of Guan-in. Yakimaru couldn't clearly see the figure. It seems like there's something blocking the way ahead. Dazai Osamu rubbed his chin, pondering, why can't you see it? Is it because I bought a cheap one, or is there some mysterious divine power at work? Because you're too poor to afford a gold-plated one. Mori-san. Dazai Osamu, realizing the issue, immediately shouted to Mori Ogai, the statue of Guan-in still needs to be gold-plated. No money, saving, wake up. Are we really part of the underworld? Today, the Port Mafia was still as poor and disappointing as ever, struggling through the days, eating instant noodles together. Chapter 21 End. Chapter 22 Ranking Errors. Dazai Osamu began to take action. First, Rokudo Mukuro entered Japan with the goal of searching for the Vongala Decimo. As an illusionist on the run, in order to accurately find the heir of the Vongala family, there are only two possibilities. First, there is a powerful enough intel broker who can provide the location of the Vongala heir. Second, there is an internal conflict within the Vongala family, and an insider reveals the location of the heir. The person before has limited scope, while the latter's ability isn't vast. The more established the mafia, the more they value the inheritance of bloodlines. Simply put, the more traditional and conservative they are, the more they despise outsiders interfering in family affairs. Moreover, how could Vongala be lacking an illusionist? If they wanted to assassinate the heir, they wouldn't need to seek outsiders. Rokudo Mukuro must have an intelligence source. This person is extremely knowledgeable about Vongala matters and has already controlled its course. Dazai Osamu recently received pocket money from Mori Ogai, spending it on the blade. He used the excuse of Yakimaru going out to fight and frequently left, successfully obtaining important intelligence related to the Vongala family. Futa, a well-known Italian intelligence dealer, arrived in Japan. It turned out that he was a member of the Vongala family. What a coincidence, both arriving in Japan one after the other. Dazai Osamu didn't believe in any coincidence. His gaze towards events was cold and ruthless, like a snake eyeing its prey. His alias is Ranking Futa. Is it due to his ranking abilities? This is a bit troublesome. Dazai Osamu, who holds the ability, No Longer Human, has never forgotten that not only can he actively nullify an enemy's ability, but he can also render any ability ineffective on himself. He is essentially an entity that insulates against supernatural powers. Dazai Osamu broke off a skewer and pulled it out, with the name, Rokudo Mukuro, still remaining on it. Let me take a look, where's the change? Ahead. Using his own strength, he slaughtered the entire city of evil spirits. The phantom youth, Yakimaru, could not find new evil entities, and he wandered like a guardian of Yokohama City, his footsteps spread across quiet places. The aura of a robust and mature demon god on him declared a sense of existence to things in the darkness, as if he had claimed the city as the ruler of Hyaki. Sooner or later, he will stand shoulder to shoulder with the Sheep King. In Yokohama, you will see a boy in a robe walking through desolate, uninhabited places. He will not listen to anything you say, nor will he stop for you. It's as if he lives in another world, a phantom. Dazai Osamu thought of the urban rumors he'd heard, put aside the bamboo skewer, and smiled as he hurried forward. Yakimaru waited for him a few meters away. In an instant, the sky became overcast, dark clouds filling the air. A few rays of sunlight still pierced through, resting at the edge of Yakimaru's steps, accentuating the white pattern on his yukata. His expression remained unwavering, resolute as ever. The wind howled, the rain threatened to fall, yet even a natural disaster could not make him retreat. Yakimaru, it's going to rain. Let's go take shelter. They hadn't planned for rain. In Yakimaru's later understanding, Dazai Osamu could not find a reason to walk alone in the rain. Because this person would also accompany him. Japan, near Kokuyo Junior High School, in an abandoned residence. A boy with deep red pupils in his right eye, inscribed with the number 6, sat on the sofa, unconcerned with the dust and cobwebs around him, simply pondering while looking at Futa, whom he had captured. Futa's full name is Futa de Easter, and he claims to possess the most comprehensive ranking book in the entire universe. However, after investigations by the Italian mafia, it was discovered that this is simply a unique ability. His book is the condition for activating his ability, and when not activated, no one else can see any text in the ranking book. The 9-year-old boy with pale skin stood in front of him, lips pressed together without saying a word. But doing so was useless. Rokudo Mukuro used his trident to pierce through the opponent, signifying the contract and taking control of the opponent's body. He did not abuse the child he favored, nor did he show leniency to this young intelligence dealer. Rank them for me. I need to know the location of Vangala Decimo. He crossed his legs, his expression indifferent, and when mentioning the name Vangala, a mocking glint appeared in his eyes. The largest mafia family in Italy, and also the source of all crime. I can't rank. Although knowing that Rokudo Mukuro was an illusionist, and even after receiving Reborn's advice, Futa was still terrified and uneasy even when he's not ranking. Such a frightening ability. Just a wound, yet a contract with an illusionist was established, and it could control a person. Futa looked around at the floating objects surrounding him, shut his mouth, and helplessly ranked for him. His eyes became hollow, as if reading some mysterious text, but in reality, he was meticulously recalling his conversation with Reborn. Futa, after you leave here, take Rokudo Mukuro to Namimori. Wouldn't that be too dangerous? Ah, if it's not dangerous, it won't be meaningful. That Danmei Suna needs to gain some knowledge about the outside world. Alright then. The world's #1 hitman, Reborn, who is also the tutor of Vangala Decimo heir Sawada Tsunayoshi, chose to train his student in this way. Futa had no right to oppose it. Having seen the innocent Tsunani, Futa sincerely hoped that he could grow up. Otherwise, Reborn will tease him to death. It was already done. Futa had specifically ranked Rokudo Mukuro's movements, intentionally running into the dangerous illusionist, making himself a pawn in the illusionist's hands. He wanted to use Rokudo Mukuro's probing to reasonably expose Vangala Decimo's downfall, guiding the enemy step by step to find Sawada Tsunayoshi, and then, he would need to safeguard the classified intel in his mind, forcefully sealing his spirit, locking away his ranking ability. Everything had been carefully planned. The mind of a 9-year-old mafia intelligence broker spun in endless circles, not lacking in the slightest compared to others. The residence of the Vangala Decimo heir, ranked 3rd, is Honshu Island, Japan. Ranked 2nd is the city of Nagoya. His voice was dry, and the ranking became increasingly precise in locating the position. Boom! Outside, the thunder roared, and torrential rain poured down over many cities. The objects floating around Futa began to grow extremely unstable. Rokudo Mukuro's gaze became serious, thinking that Futa's ranking had mentioned a crucial secret of the Vangala family, with the fall of the Vangala Decimo heir revealed in the final sentence. Ranked first. Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan. Yokohama City. As soon as the words left his mouth, Futa immediately felt his strength weaken, as if his brain had been pried open, causing intense pain. He collapsed from midair onto the ground, and the book slipped from his hands. This was the most severe interference his power had ever faced, as if the downpour itself was meant to suppress him, and his rational thoughts became uncontrollably chaotic. Yokohama. Rokudo Mukuro suddenly stood up. Had he been looking in the wrong direction? Futa didn't forget his mission, holding on and shouting, "Wrong. You're thinking wrong. My abilities are unstable in rainy weather, I can't accurately rank." Rokudo Mukuro let out a cold laugh. "Do you think I'd believe what a mafia says?" Futa clutched his aching head and insisted, "I'm afraid you'll kill me. This location is wrong. If you don't believe me, I can rank again and show you." Tsunani is in Namamori, a town under Nagoya Prefecture, definitely not Yokohama in Kanagawa Prefecture. Every time it rains, his ability suffers significant interference, making it impossible for him to communicate with the ranking stars. This middle school syndrome talk is something he claims himself. In fact, his ability cannot function properly on rainy days, and during such times, he tends to rank some rare and peculiar things. "Very well, rank it for me again." Rokudo Mukuro, fully aware of his ability, knew he wouldn't dare to put on a show in front of him. This time, rank the most suitable person in Japan to become Vangala Decimo. Rokudo Mukuro had some reservations and did not directly ask for the name. After all, the ranking ability requires a proper ranking process to obtain the result, not just acting as a simple search engine. Futa immediately began the ranking, and once again, his body floated weightlessly. He opened his mouth, almost shouting in fear. The most suitable candidate for Vangala Decimo, ranked third is Xanxus. Ranked second, Sawada Tsunayoshi. Ranked number 1 is Nakahara Chuya. Wait a minute, where's Tsunani's name? And who is this Nakahara Chuya from some corner of Japan? Futa was dumbfounded. His own ability was already inconsistent on rainy days, but why did it suddenly become something he had never heard of before? Wait, no. This is still wrong. Futa struggled to shout, his hand not yet able to grab Rokudo Mukuro's pant leg before his vision darkened, and it felt like bright red blood was trickling out of his nose. The 9-year-old child immediately passed out. Rokudo Mukuro stopped, looked down at Futa, and said, "Ken, help me carry him." Just like him, Joshima Ken, who survived human experiments, stepped forward, following his orders and casually picking up the child. Meanwhile, another more rational individual stood by the door and asked Rokudo Mukuro, "Mukuro-sama, where should we go next? Can we trust what this child is saying?" Rokudo Mukuro responded, "We're going to Yokohama." As for the second question, Futa is lying. The blue-haired youth's eyes flickered with a cold, sharp light. He's hiding something from me, but through the power of the contract, I can clearly sense that he's telling the truth. He stepped up the stairs, walking ahead of the three others, with an undying hatred for the mafia in his heart. Once we've arrived in Yokohama, we'll proceed with the next ranking, and find the strongest one. Anyone who could strip Xanxus of his inheritance rights, with such a notorious reputation in Italy, Vangala Decimo's strength is certainly not ordinary. From what I know, he's not very old, and is the biological son of external advisor Sawada Imitsu. Is his name Sawada Tsunayoshi, or perhaps Nakahara Chuya? Kufufufu, we'll see based on the situation. The Mafia external advisor inherited the bloodline of the first-generation Vangala boss, with blonde hair and blue eyes. As long as this bloodline exists, they essentially possess the natural right of succession. The detestable mafia group values nothing more than the hereditary bloodline system. Rokudo Mukuro left. At Suribachi City, completely unaware of his destiny being predetermined, Nakahara Chiya glanced at the weather. This strange weather, when it said it would rain, it rained, and when it said it would clear up, it cleared up. Nakahara Chiya stopped using his gravity manipulation ability to control the rain, holding a bento in his hand as he spoke. Just deliver this one order and I'll be done. He was juggling 4 or 5 different temporary jobs at once, full of energy, and with his gravity abilities, physical exhaustion was especially easy to reduce. In a short time, he had indeed managed to make a substantial sum for living expenses. Thinking of the small children in the sheep, Nakahara Chiya's gaze softened. These people were innocent. Then, Nakahara Chiya immediately had the thought of finishing the job and heading back. He dashed off, faster than a speeding car. Arriving at a nearly empty bubble tea shop, he followed the directions from the phone and the address to deliver. "Hello, may I ask if you ordered pizza, a lunchbox, or?" The words on the back, he read out slowly, grinding them out. Dazai Osamu sat in a corner, biting the straw of his bubble tea, while Yakimaru also sat there, holding his bubble tea, looking dazed. Both of them simultaneously lifted their heads to look in his direction. "Hi. Kill." The unmistakable annoyance aimed at him came from none other than Dazai Osamu, who had been irritating him for a long time. Nakahara Chiya threw the bento box over, which Dazai Osamu easily caught, nullifying the terrifying gravity that had been placed on it. The boy, unable to hold back any longer, furiously rolled up his sleeves and said, "Let's settle this outside." This miserable life, he never imagined it would turn out this way. Nakahara Chiya thought he was fighting Dazai Osamu, but sadly, he ended up facing Yakimaru. He didn't dare recklessly use his gravity ability anymore and instead fought hand-to-hand with the black-haired boy. Dazai Osamu sat at the door of a bubble tea shop, munching on pizza while rambling on. "Little shorty, using pizza to bribe customers, I ought to leave you a bad review. Get lost." The color-changing demon god, life flame, surged as if it were exploding, with its deep red core roiling like hellish lava, yet it was tightly restrained by a thin outer layer of pale crimson. Yakimaru sensed that the pressure was significantly less than in previous encounters. The demon god had no intention of killing him. Why? Unconsciously, he reduced his strength a little, giving Nakahara Chiya, who was practicing martial arts, a moment to catch his breath. Nakahara Chiya seemed to realize his own flaw, relying too much on the advantage brought by gravity. "Why are you holding back?" Yakimaru, confused, found himself developing a newly understood language with his opponent in the midst of the battle. Of course, Nakahara Chiya launched a wide and aggressive kick, while behind him, there was an overly talkative Dazai Osamu saying, "Careful not to overstretch your legs." He focused intensely, veins popping, as he confronted Yakimaru. "I'm not your enemy." The one he wanted to kill was that blue mackerel, not him. After exchanging blows, Yakimaru pulled back, keeping a distance. His dual swords remained sheathed, his limbs as flexible as a puppet's, revealing an extraordinary combat style. "Are you a human possessed by the demon god?" The demon god may roar, but humanity is not necessarily guilty to the extent of deserving death 1,000 times over. It is very likely they are simply caught in the crossfire. Yakimaru searched the entire city, nearly wiping out the evil entities, but he could only find one demon god. If he abandoned the idea of subjugating that one, how would he find a second demon god within half a year? The thoughts of slaughter intertwined with human reasoning, and the desire for existence whimpered in agony. He slowly unsheathed his weapon. Nakahara Chiya was somewhat in despair. "Are we going to fight to the death like this again?" Dazai Osamu clapped his hands, picked up a phone, and responded with a few words. After that, he wrapped his arms around Yakimaru's waist from behind, pulling back the undecided black-haired boy who was about to continue the fight. We'll stop here for today. See you next time. Who wants to see you next time? Nakahara Chiya picked up a stone from the ground and threw it, but it didn't hit Dazai Osamu, as Yakimaru blocked it. Dazai Osamu touched the scratch on the prosthetic in Yakimaru's palm, a surge of anger rising within him. He maintained a smile and said, "You're finished. Just wait to die. You'll never climb back up, you slug." This came from a mass of black sludge filled with multiple layers of curses, which directly turned into sharp arrows, severely injuring Nakahara Chiya. The Sheep King went into a frenzy again, chasing the two all the way to a nearby clinic before giving up. They closed the door. Dazai Osamu wiped the sweat off and said, "That was really dangerous." He turned and asked Yakimaru, who showed no signs of fatigue, "You want to kill him, don't you?" Yakimaru remained silent. Dazai Osamu quietly, almost inaudibly, said, "Wait a bit, there will be a chance." Yakimaru stared intently at the white flames connected to him, their hands clasped together. Whether he could survive after breaking away from his foster father depended on obtaining body parts by defeating the demon gods. What should I do now? Should I kill all the demon gods that stand in my way? He touched Dororo's face, just as he had always tried to express his feelings to his foster father. "You will understand, won't you? I want to survive together with you." Chapter 22 End. Chapter 23, Mystery of Origins. Japan, Namimori Town. Early in the morning, a gentleman dressed like a baby sat by the window on the upper floor of a building, a small table with a cup of coffee in front of him. He wasn't drinking it, though. He was on a phone call, tilting his hat low, casting a shadow over his face. A green lizard lay hibernating atop his hat, its cold, reptilian eyes no longer carrying the usual cute demeanor, instead mirroring its master's mood. "Alright, Futa has been captured, is that so? Rokudo Mukuro is heading to Yokohama." Finishing the conversation, Reborn placed the mini mobile phone on the table and lifted the coffee, taking a small sip. He murmured, "Yesterday, there was a sudden rainstorm. The world's top assassin was at a loss for words. Training disciples by making them run. Every Vangala boss throughout history has had 6 central family members known as guardians before taking their position. The guardians differ based on their personalities and elemental attributes. Currently, they have found the candidates for the Storm Guardian, Gokudera Hayato, the Rain Guardian, Yamamoto Takeshi, the Sun Guardian, Sasagawa Yohei, and the Cloud Guardian, Hibari Kyoya. All of them are students at Namimori Middle School and are closely connected with Sawada Tsunayoshi. Aside from a few exceptions, these people's ancestors all had ties to the Vangala Primo, with deep bloodline connections, naturally possessing the power of the dying wolf flame. Time was pressing, and the Vangala family urgently needed a Decimo leader. Among the Decimo families, they were still missing the hardest-to-find Mist Guardian, and the minimum requirement for the Mist Guardian was proficiency in illusions. Considering that Sawada Tsunayoshi was only 14 years old this year, for better communication, the age gap with the leader could not be too large. Reborn is a perfectionist. The Vangala family seeks the kind of top-tier talent from around the world, and there is only one illusionist of the right caliber who has caught his eye and is of the appropriate age. Italy's Rokudo Mukuro. His potential surpasses even Mamon's. He is neither greedy nor afraid of death, with exceptional talent. If he could be persuaded, perhaps the legendary illusion praised for being an uncatchable entity could be obtained. An illusion, huh? Reborn finished his coffee, stretched out his hand, and the lizard crawled onto his finger, beginning to transform. Without the sky to hold it, where would the mist have a place to survive? A large mallet appeared in his short, adorable fingers, aimed directly at the boy sleeping soundly on the bed. "Wake up, Dame Suna." Ow! The next second, a loud and piercing wail echoed through the second floor of the Sawada residence. While having breakfast, Sawada Tsunayoshi rubbed his aching head, half asleep, as he vaguely heard Reborn talking to his mom, sounding very much like the true head of the household. "Mama, Suna's school will take a break before July. The school has arranged a field trip to Yokohama, so in a few days, we will be heading to Yokohama. Yokohama? Since when does school take a break early? Sawada Tsunayoshi used his big, confused, watery eyes, trying to soften the person talking. However, Reborn, in his childlike body and unyielding steel heart, coldly ignored him, focusing on the conversation with Sawada Nana. Sawada Nana expressed her concern, then suddenly raised a finger as if remembering something. I heard Yokohama is a bit chaotic, the neighbors said not to go there, right? Reborn, in a playful tone, replied, don't worry, soon as dad is making money from oil drilling, and he's hired bodyguards. Sawada Nana laughed in agreement and went to check on her depressed-looking son. What's wrong, Sunakun? Immediately, Reborn's death-piercing stares was aimed at Sawada Tsunayoshi. Sawada Tsunayoshi trembled and said, as long as school is dismissed first, I have no objections. What kind of joke is this? Resisting this Spartan demon baby's demands is worse than death. At the dining table, Lambo was still playing with Ipin, the two children easing the tense atmosphere. Reborn's expression softened, temporarily sparing the sullen-faced Sawada Tsunayoshi. Suddenly, Lambo, having been defeated by Ipin, tried to pull out a weapon. Reborn suddenly shouted, Lambo, didn't your family ever remind you? You must not use the 10-year bazooka on yourself or anyone around you. Lambo, still not having pulled out his pink bazooka, confusedly muttered, I think they did say something like that. He quickly tucked it back away. The assassin Ipin tilted her head, why can't Lambo use his weapon? Lambo, with a candy in his mouth, replied, Lambo-sama doesn't know, but they don't allow it at home. I heard it can kill people. After Sawada Nana went to the kitchen, Bianchi, known as Poison Scorpion, casually gathered dishes for Reborn and said nonchalantly, the Bovino family's 10-year bazooka has now become a sharp murder weapon. Reborn replied calmly, anyone hit by the 10-year bazooka will soon develop a large wound that neither bleeds nor hurts, but their body will be filled with toxins. They are almost certainly doomed, and those who are lucky enough to survive report feeling their heart racing, as if some danger from a temporal passage is approaching. Lambo didn't care at all about these big headaches and troubles of the adults, mumbling, I only used it once. When I met the people from 10 years later, they told me not to use this weapon again, unless it was to deal with an enemy. The incident happened a few months ago. This caused a huge stir within both the Vongala family and the Bovino family. The Vongala family, which controls the power of the Vongala rings along the time axis, holds a significant portion of the foundation of the world, the Trini set. In theory, those under the protection of the Vongala family are equivalent to being protected by time itself. The Bovino family's proud time weapon had turned into a terrifying murder weapon. According to their calculations, some unknown anomaly had occurred in this world. Lambo, did they give any other warnings? For the first time, Reborn questioned him about the future. Lambo puffed out his chest proudly, racking his brain to remember, cold sweat trickling down his forehead. They said, don't look directly, can't record, if you see it, you'll die. The most precious piece of information was still passed on, from the mouth of this 5-year-old child. Reborn nodded and jumped off the chair, I'll go contact Vongala. Sawada Tsunayoshi was completely confused, what is this? Other people laughed lightly, playfully teasing, not taking it seriously at all. Their lives, for the moment, would not intersect with such enemies in the space-time category, but their future enemies were not far from Yokohama City. In Suribachi town, the sheep king Nakahara Chuya had heard that some strangers had recently entered the area. He couldn't muster up the slightest bit of energy. Do you think holding 2 jobs is easy? Making money had already exhausted him. What's it got to do with me? Sheep king. Some people are looking for the strongest person around here. Oh. The strongest person was him, he was waiting to be worshipped. And also. The informant hesitated, looking at Nakahara Chuya with a changed expression. There's a new rumor from Suribachi Street, saying that Vongola Decimo is here, and that the strongest person is the heir to Italy's top-ranked mafia family. Nakahara Chuya stopped playing his game, looking up with an indescribable expression. Huh? What could the Italian mafia have to do with him? In GSS, after joining for a period of time, the new members managed fairly well. Every day, there was someone specifically guiding them on how to use both firearms and cold weapons, indirectly learning how to be self-sufficient. Shirase was shocked after hearing the rumors about Suribachi Street. Impossible. Chuya has been searching for his origins for 5 or 6 years, even his name is one he chose himself. We've never heard anything about the Vongola family. The GSS member coldly replied, it had better be that way, otherwise they would be offending the next leader of the Vongola family. Yokohama's various powers had not yet fully stabilized when an external bomb was thrown into the waters, drawing the attention of all the upper echelons to this chaotic area of Suribachi Street. The mastermind furrowed his brow once again, sitting in the empty space of Yokohama's city room, and said displeased, Ken, Chikusa, there's no need to hide it anymore. Someone has already leaked our information about searching for Vongola Decimo. Jushima Ken growled viciously, Mukuro-sama, could it be that Futa? Rokudo Mukuro shook his head, he's been under my surveillance the entire time, with no opportunity to contact the outside world. The world isn't lacking in smart people, Mukuro-sama. If we do this, it will be easy for us to become someone else's pawns, Kakimoto Chikusa said rationally. Once things get out of hand, those protecting Vongola Decimo will definitely outnumber those who want him dead. We either strike quickly and decisively, or leave for a while. After some thought, Rokudo Mukuro replied, we can't wait any longer. They were escapees from Italy prison, and their movements couldn't stay hidden from the Vindici for long. He needed to obtain the body of Vongola Decimo. Either that or a sufficiently powerful contractor, to ensure our side's fighting strength could rival the Vindici. Or he could exploit Vongola Decimo's status, threaten the Vindici in prison, and if that proved useless, make an agreement with the Vongola family to force the Vindici to abandon their pursuit. Ken, bring Futa here. After making up his mind, Rokudo Mukuro suppressed the disgust of being schemed against and spoke. The most powerful youth in Yokohama. A new contractor. And possibly, the one who is Vongola Decimo. Futa was utterly broken inside as he ranked for Rokudo Mukuro. He had no way to offer any excuses or explanations for the issues with his abilities, and Rokudo Mukuro didn't believe the truth coming from his mouth. Tsunami is in Namamori town. Reborn is waiting for you in Namamori town. It's over. The Vongola's plan had been disrupted by his own actions. How would he explain this to Reborn when he returned? The strongest youth in Yokohama, Futa, unable to cry, used his ranking ability, painfully deciding to help Rokudo Mukuro this time. Afterward, he would shut himself off, waiting for Reborn to send someone to rescue him. Go ahead and make a scene. That way, the Vongola family will be able to find you, Rokudo Mukuro. Third place is Nakajima Etsushi. Second place is Yakimaru. First place is Nakahara Chuya. The Sheep King has once again made it onto the rankings. Inside the armed detective agency, Edogawa Ranpo, who wasn't on a business trip, rested his chin in his hand, a small bubble of sleep forming by his nose. With a sudden bang, the sound of the door being pushed open startled him awake. Kunikita Dalpo came here every day after school to prepare for the president's training. He had just put down his shoulder bag and hadn't gone to the president's office to find Fukuzawa Yukichi when he was stopped by the bewildered Edogawa Ranpo, who asked, Kunikita, do you consider me a youth? Kunikita Dalpo replied straightforwardly, yes, Ranpo-san, you're 18, one becomes an adult at 20. Edogawa Ranpo was initially excited, but then he became dejected. No one could understand his thought process, they could only see him grabbing snacks to fill his stomach, muttering, if there's a ranking, it should be based on ability, right? What does physical strength count for? In terms of ability, the greatest detective must be first. Chapter 23 End. Chapter 24, Encountering the Target. Dororo. With an empty hand, Yakimaru faced Dazai Osamu, who started to circle around to the back of the chair. Dazai Osamu playfully said, "You can't catch me." Yakimaru was unwilling to let him evade, but deep down, he felt a strange sense of discomfort, as if something about this game was off. Wasn't there a similar scene in ancient dramas where someone would catch a beautiful courtesan? Feeling puzzled, Yakimaru couldn't help but vaguely imagine the appearance of Dororo. In his mind, she was probably not extraordinarily beautiful, but a cute and delicate girl. Just like that, the game of hide the cat stretched on for nearly 2 days. During the day, Dazai Osamu did not touch him even slightly, and at night, he kept his distance while sleeping. There were still a few beds in the clinic. In the prolonged situation where Dororo could not be found, the puppet-like boy in a quiet state suddenly sprang into action. He lunged, his arm reaching toward Dazai Osamu, aiming for the direction he would dodge, trying to catch Dororo. Dazai Osamu successfully predicted this, smoothly dodging in the opposite direction. Mori Ogai, after watching the uneventful scene for quite some time, finally spoke, "Dazai-kun, if you keep doing this, you'll make Yaki-kun sad. He's someone who really has no sense of security." "I'm thinking for Mori-san." Dazai Osamu stared at Yakimaru's every move, clearly enjoying himself, and said, "If Mori-san is interested in the newcomers to Yokohama, then Yakimaru shouldn't touch me. My no longer human will cause his ranking to lose effectiveness." Mori Ogai's mind raced swiftly, and a strange, gloomy expression appeared on the face of the worn-out old man. "According to your guess, the newcomers aren't from the Vangala family? How could they be Vangala?" Dazai Osamu gently responded to Mori Ogai, holding intel clues from both the Port Mafia and the Special Division, essentially the one holding the script of this event. He was the mastermind behind the scenes pushing the event forward, while the unexpected trigger came from Yakimaru. Yakimaru, whose fortune was the strongest, directly disrupted the flow. The result was Rokudo Mukuro arrived in Yokohama. With Mori-san involved, Yakimaru had no way to capture Dazai Osamu, sitting obediently at a distance of 2 meters from Dazai Osamu, his joints bound tightly to the chair. This process almost cost Mori Ogai his old life, as Yakimaru did not hold back on attacking him. Elise helped hold his legs steady. She proudly declared, "Rin Taro, I want to eat cake." The broke Rin Taro cheerfully paid for Elise's cake, completely forgetting that some people were surviving on instant noodles. Dazai Osamu subtly smirked, "Mori-san, aren't you running low on money?" Mori Ogai happily replied, "Even if I am, I can't save money on my little girl. She is the world's treasure." Just as Dazai Osamu was about to return to the main topic, Mori Ogai added one more thing. "Yaki-kun is also a treasure." The hand resting on Yakimaru's tense shoulder, Mori Ogai, in his white lab coat, smiled and said, "When Yaki-kun's sense of taste is restored, I'll invite him to eat cake again. Don't think of me as some heinous villain. My goal is to protect this city, and Yaki-kun has made tremendous contributions to it as well." Does he know what Yakimaru has been killing? Dazai Osamu understood the underlying message. Mori Ogai's experience far surpassed his own, no wonder he assumed the role of a teacher. Though he's a scoundrel, he's also a very formidable one. "Get your hand off." Yakimaru exploded with anger, and the other party's hand ignited with a deep red flame, pressing down on his shoulder. "Mori-san, if you don't let go of him, I'll get upset." Dazai Osamu said with a playful smile. "Fine." Mori Ogai no longer probed Yakimaru, regretfully acknowledging that this was someone his teacher valued, and he couldn't use more forceful means. "Yaki-kun, the news you receive through your eyes and ears may not always be true. Your heart will tell you what is good or bad. Can you always distinguish it correctly?" Yakimaru sighed in relief as Mori backed away, no longer worrying about his inability to move. Once again, he felt troubled by the other's identity. Could they really be father and daughter? During this time, Yakimaru stayed at the other's house, ate their food, and he and Dororo were not only unharmed by them but were also given a place to shelter from the storm. Yakimaru wanted to get an answer, looking toward Dororo on the other side, but unfortunately, he couldn't find the right words. How is the word father written in Japanese? He couldn't remember. However, he did remember mother, because his foster father Jukai was as gentle as a mother, taking care of him, carving intricate masks and prosthetics for him. Yakimaru, filled with nostalgia for Jukai, stopped struggling, which led Dazai Osamu to misunderstand. Dazai Osamu walked over and, with a light touch, placed his hand in front of Yakimaru's mask, imitating Yakimaru's habit of touching his own face. Perhaps, in Yakimaru's heart, this was a way of expressing closeness. Even though it cannot touch the essence, this distance. In your mind, it is considered a caress. Yakimaru, in a few days, I'll make it up to you. Dazai Osamu said it loud enough for others to hear. The only one who reacted was Mori Ogai, who looked at them with a faint, amused smile. Puppets should behave. Stay vigilant, don't let Mori-san's actions lead you astray. Only then will people like you. I might like you just a little. Less than normal people like normal people, nor is it pity. It is close to the feeling of life flowing from the same kind of being, a little spark of life, not wishing to see you die. That's what he thought. Dazai Osamu wasn't smiling, but in front of the pure white life flame, there was always the softness of cotton candy. What would it feel like to be touched by cotton candy? Yakimaru felt that indescribable delicate tenderness. Unable to respond, his teeth clashed together where there was no flesh in his mouth, and through the mask, a sound came out, surprising Dazai Osamu. Clank. I trust you. There was no fear of losing the strength to act or of being unable to see the world clearly, he was still willing to trust the other person. You are my Dororo. The promise was fulfilled very quickly. Within 3 days, the Suribachi Street ambush incident had temporarily ceased, and people began inquiring about Yakimaru's whereabouts. After a quick word with Mori Ogai, Dazai Osamu grabbed Yakimaru by the hand and rushed out. Mori-san, Yakimaru and I will go help you check out the strength of the outsiders. Ah, much appreciated. Mori Ogai waved his hand. Elise, sitting nearby, snarked, that's way too enthusiastic. Mori Ogai's intel paused at the connection between the person arriving and Italy's Vongola, still unclear about the real identity of the attacker, and he grew curious about how Dazai Osamu intended to resolve this troublesome situation. Dazai-kun, regarding the ranking, the most famous ranking in Italy is ranking Futa. Why would ranking Futa and the strong attacker from Suribachi Street be involved? Are they looking for Nakahara Chuya, or are they searching for Yakimaru? After a long period of busyness, the port mafia boss became interested. As Dazai Osamu said, just watching would be enough. It hadn't yet reached the point where he needed to personally step in. Suribachi Street, Yakimaru didn't realize he was heading toward a familiar place, completely focused on the interlocked hands, fingers entwined, with pure white flames seeming to burn between the gaps of his fingers. Dazai Osamu didn't think it was necessary to be this intimate, but after some awkwardness, he gave in to Yakimaru's wishes. Who taught you this? I haven't even held hands like this with a girl. The flame from Dororo looks so soft. I want to take a bite. Yakimaru realized how strange his thoughts were, pulled himself back, and stopped his wild imagination. Let's go see over there. Dazai Osamu redirected Yakimaru, sending him to find evil people. Based on his intel, Rokudo Mukuro, who slaughtered the entire Estranio family's adults, was certainly a marked target, and Yakimaru was the bane of such individuals. Yakimaru's perception could penetrate anything that wasn't shielded, and even thin coverings couldn't block his sight. In some sense, this was a spiritual power. It wasn't a matter of one ability overcoming another, his investigative power was so strong that even, no longer human, couldn't erase this acquired talent. He was seriously watching the direction Dororo wanted him to see. They were all dim life flames. In one corner, the group of criminals all had the intention of escaping, trembling uncontrollably, not expecting Yakimaru to spot them. That harbinger of death has come again. Dazai Osamu and Yakimaru made their way through a narrow alley on Suribachi Street. At one point, Dazai Osamu's childish side emerged, as he jumped up the stairs, only to stop after Yakimaru had already walked a few steps ahead before slowly catching up. Each time Dazai Osamu almost tripped over some random clutter, Yakimaru would support him, preventing him from falling. Blind in sight but clear in heart. Dazai Osamu hung onto him, praising, "Yakimaru is truly amazing." Yakimaru caught Dororo and felt a sense of accomplishment. "I absolutely won't be a burden." The two wandered aimlessly, heading wherever seemed fun, and every place they passed sent people fleeing in terror. Even the residents of Suribachi Street, who considered themselves not a very good person, kept their distance from them with a respectful fear. Stopped by someone asking for directions, it turned out that this was the most interesting event Dazai Osamu encountered today. "Wait a moment. Can I ask for directions?" A blue-haired boy ran over, dressed in a uniform, exuding a scholarly air, as if he had mistakenly wandered into Suribachi Street. Dazai Osamu used a persuasion method to signal Yakimaru to stop. Yakimaru, with a blank expression, withdrew his arm, and the swordsman's severed arm from many days ago appeared. Dazai Osamu let out a pfft as he laughed. The blue-haired, confused boy saw Yakimaru's sword embedded in place, and his pupils slightly trembled. He took a step back in fear and awkwardly asked, "Excuse me, how do I go this way?" He showed them a map, the convoluted and strange paths on it leading toward the depths of Suribachi Street. It was well known that finding a specific location on Suribachi Street was quite a difficult task. Dazai Osamu forcefully suppressed Yakimaru's intense hostility, then glanced at the map, stroking his chin. It's this place, huh? The road to the spot you're looking for isn't in great condition." He gave the blue-haired youth an expression that was subtly similar. There was no difference from being bashful. Rokudo Mukuro felt disgusted, but fortunately, his acting skills didn't falter. His bangs concealed his heterochromatic eyes, with his left eye being blue, much like those of Europeans. His somewhat mature features still retained a youthful charm. Dazai Osamu pronounced each word slowly. "How about I take you there myself?" Rokudo Mukuro hesitated. "Would it be troublesome for you?" Dazai Osamu forcefully grabbed Yakimaru's arm, casually creating a character for himself, and feigned innocence, saying, "Yakimaru, let's go together." "Yakimaru, Dororo, my arm is about to be torn off." And the place they were heading to, deep within Suribachi Street, the Sheep King's base. They're forming a group to fight the boss. Nakahara Chuya was working part-time on the side, delivering lunchboxes, doing courier work, and temporary jobs like delivering newspapers. His professional skills were strong, and his physical abilities along with his ability were also formidable, making his daily earnings extremely impressive. At the age of 14, while others were still in school reading books and discussing novels and magazines, he was already working hard. Money is something that absolutely cannot be done without. When he finally managed to take a day off, barely sitting down and not even finishing a few rounds of his game, his ears sharply picked up unfamiliar footsteps from outside. "Who's there?" The door was pounded repeatedly, and then Dazai Osamu's excited voice shouted out. "Nakahara Chuya, someone's here to see you." Nakahara Chuya's stomach ached. Since the day he was born until now, Nakahara Chuya has had the most exhaustion caused by Dazai Osamu, to the point that hearing this person's voice triggers an instinctive urge to grab whatever is within reach and throw it. Why does Yakimaru think Dazai Osamu is a good person? He's clearly a deceitful bastard. Outside, Dazai Osamu had already prepared to step back, not wanting to get involved in whatever unclear mess was going on between Nakahara Chuya and this person. "Chuya is inside, you." Unexpectedly, the blue-haired boy wasn't in a hurry and instead asked Yakimaru, who had a crippled body. "You are the Yakimaru they talk about on Suribachi Street?" "This guy." Yakimaru stared at Rokudo Mukuro, whose life flame flickered with a crimson light, dirty yet not particularly dark, somewhat similar to the feeling Yumino Kyusaku gave him, barely considered a protector of the mind. Illusionists are all experts in the realm of the mind, and once they fall, they become even more terrifying. Rokudo Mukuro still had his own bottom line. "This is our first meeting. Honestly, I'm more curious about people like you." Unfortunately, there's not much time. Rokudo Mukuro's image somewhat faded. What true civilian would dare step into Suribachi Street, and even curious about Suribachi Yakimaru? Even if he has personal ties with Nakahara Chuya, it was still hard to convince. After achieving his goal, Rokudo Mukuro didn't bother with disguising anymore, pushing his bangs aside with his fingers to reveal his eyes. His heterochromatic gaze fell upon the two people before him. "Alright, it's just one person." Dazai Osamu dramatically remarked, "Your eyes are like a Persian cat's, but there's a number on them." Rokudo Mukuro nodded at the two, his attitude much more indifferent. Observing the black hair on Yakimaru, Rokudo Mukuro concluded that he had little connection with the Vangala. On the contrary, it was Nakahara Chuya, whom he had heard about in Suribachi Street, that most closely matched the image of Vangala Decimo, strong, protective of the weak, and retaliatory against enemies. The orange-haired, blue-eyed boy possessed far too many special qualities that ordinary people could not attain, as if he were born a strong individual, standing above others. If he had a qualified mafia teacher to provide guidance and a bit of polishing, he could shine brilliantly on the stage of the Italian mafia. From the words of the residents of Suribachi Street and through his own interpretation, Rokudo Mukuro finally arrived at one thought: even if Nakahara Chuya is not the Vangala Decimo, I still want his body. A body with tremendous potential and abilities. Without much consideration, Rokudo Mukuro quickly encountered the second-ranked individual, a boy named Yakimaru. As soon as the other party saw him, it was as if they instinctively sensed his danger, pulling back his arm and emitting hostility. This reaction immediately attracted the attention of the illusionist, surprising him with such innate instincts. Putting aside what could be observed by the naked eye, Rokudo Mukuro also experienced a deeper level of mental resonance. He vaguely felt. The black-haired boy seemed to possess a talent for spiritual power. However, the awkward part was that Yakimaru and he had not resonated with each other in any way. Rokudo Mukuro's unilateral intent was destined to be one-sided, with a malevolent Dazai Osamu thrown into the mix. Kufufufu. We will meet again. A mist of electric blue appeared around Rokudo Mukuro, and he vanished before the two of them. Did the life flame just vanish? What did the other party come here for, exactly? Without a second thought, Dazai Osamu grabbed Yakimaru's hand and started to run away together. Let's head back. The three people disappeared without a trace. When Nakahara Chuya finally couldn't hold back and opened the door to check outside, there was no one there. Nakahara Chuya opened his mouth. You all. Where did they go? The empty scene seemed to mock him, greatly tormenting Nakahara Chuya's heart. His body swayed, and he rubbed his ear. Could it be that he hated Dazai Osamu so much that he started hallucinating? Am I broken too? Chapter 24 End. Chapter 25, Temporal Monster. At night, the three who went out to gather intel had all returned. Joshima Ken and Kakimoto Chikusa stood on either side of the sofa. After reporting their individual findings, a deep-seated fear from their pursuit of the nightmare that led them to Rokudo Mukuro arose. Mukuro-sama, the Sheep King is an ability user who manipulates gravity. We can't get close to him, and we're concerned that close combat attacks will be ineffective. Could his ability affect your illusions? It's fine. His subordinates are his weakness. That's right. Mukuro-sama, that person ranked second seems to not meet your contract bearer's requirements. Incomplete isn't frightening, what's frightening is someone who's incomplete and useless. After hearing this, Rokudo Mukuro gave a brief response to the two who were both his pursuers and companions. He extended his hand forward, grabbing the air, and the mist of his illusion formed into a trident. The trident lightly tapped down, emitting a metallic sound of contact. Suribachi Street is actually a feng shui treasure, those two are extremely outstanding, yet they haven't been absorbed into other forces. Ken, Chikusa, the intelligence gathering can end here. The top 3 people in Futa had ranked, I've already met 2 of them. The third one is temporarily nowhere to be found, but that doesn't matter. His deep red pupils, symbolizing the 6 paths of reincarnation, were the result of human experimentation that granted him power. Tonight, I'll deal with the 2 of them. Futa, who was locked in the room, appeared. His eyes were lifeless, as if he had lost all hope in the current situation. There was only one thought in his mind. Rokudo Mukuro, you've got the wrong person. The true heir of Vangala Decimo, Sawada Tsunayoshi, sneezed on the bus heading to Yokohama, rubbed his nose, and looked desperately at the group of people traveling with him. Why is even Hibari-senpai joining in on this trip? You're lying on top of the bus, getting windblown, aren't you even planning to come down and join us? Reborn, sitting beside him, had fastened his seatbelt securely, like an obedient child who followed the rules, daily indulging in acting cute. The number 1 assassin was calculating in his mind. Yokohama seemed to be the territory of the port mafia. This time, it wasn't some ridiculous display of brotherhood for that Damisuna. The first meeting between the foreign Italian mafia and the native Japanese mafia might just take place in Yokohama. Yokohama, hopefully, the organization whose internal conflict had just ended wouldn't keep an eye on Rokudo Mukuro. Otherwise, tch, everyone wants a good seed. The most flexible and powerful youth, being at the age with the highest potential, can be taught over the course of a few years, making him the most suitable for cultivating loyalty to the organization. Moreover, illusionists have always been a specialty of Italy and rarely flow into other foreign organizations, but this does not mean that foreign forces are not watching closely. Reborn muttered, even if we lose Rokudo Mukuro, it's necessary to find someone of equal value. What are you talking about? Sawada Tsunayoshi sensed Reborn speaking and looked over in confusion. Nothing, Reborn smiled innocently. Sawada Tsunayoshi didn't know why he shuddered, the inherited hyper-intuition had activated since Reborn had arrived, dragging him to a near-deadened level of constant alert every day. Normal danger no longer triggered that chilling feeling in him. A bustling, modernized trading city lay right before his eyes. In the night, 5 towering buildings stood tall in the city center, becoming landmarks alongside the Ferris wheel, their reflections visible in the eyes of every traveler entering this city. Wow, so beautiful. This is Japan's 2nd largest city. It looks so lively at night. Yokohama, Lumbo-sama wants to eat local specialties. Huh, we've already arrived. The bus slowly made its way into the import district, and on top of the bus, Hibari Kyoya sat up. The jacket of his school uniform, draped over his shoulders, was lifted by the slightly cool summer night breeze, prompting him to press it down with his hand. His cold demeanor and strange behavior were equally embraced by this city, and the passers-by were not surprised. There are plenty of people stranger than him. This city, which accepted him just like Namimori did, made Hibari Kyoya feel a little more fondness for it. Will there be a lot of carnivores? He was drawn to Yokohama by the powerful individuals of the same age that Reborn mentioned, and while he still held on to his doubts, upon arriving in Yokohama, his battle instincts were starting to get excited. A city's underworld darkness is determined by its level of prosperity. For a modern large port city to maintain order, keep logistics flowing, yet show so few police officers, there must be a high-ranking figure controlling everything from behind the scenes. He believed that even if this figure was not a powerful fighter, their subordinates certainly would be, and these people would be his next challenge. Only the elderly, the sick, and the weak remained in the sheep organization. A young member, barely in his teens, went missing for a while, but it didn't raise any suspicions. Everyone assumed he couldn't resist sneaking out to play. Then, the boy, even shorter than Nakahara Chuya, returned, his head lowered, holding a cold weapon in his hand. Nakahara Chuya glanced over after stepping outside. Only part of a trident? You found it? The boy nodded, frightened, without saying a word. Be careful out there. Nakahara Chuya only offered this piece of advice and didn't concern himself with what the boy had picked up. The young man followed behind him all the way to Nakahara Chuya's room. Nakahara Chuya couldn't help but ask, Kimura, do you have something you want to say to me? The young man presented the trident in front of him, and Nakahara Chuya burst into laughter. I don't need something like this. Nakahara Chuya's hands, mostly concealed in his pockets, rarely exposed his skin. Even in the summer, he wore a coat and a t-shirt, with the hood of his hoodie down, revealing a handsome, fair face. He didn't fully trust the sheep member, yet he still softened a little. So he forced himself to accept the trident. This kind of toy. The boy's hand trembled, and the sharp trident easily cut through the other's skin. Nakahara Chuya hissed, glancing at the back of his hand. It was just a tiny cut, barely a drop of blood. His first reaction to the injury wasn't to blame the boy but generously reassured him, it's fine, you were just careless. The boy, dazed, withdrew the trident. Nakahara Chuya frowned, has my credibility dropped that much in their eyes? He pressed his hand against the back of his blood-stained hand, trying to suppress the anxiety in his heart. Sheep. It used to be his family. In the clinic, there were 2 beds arranged. Yakimaru lay on the single bed by the wall, his body tilted, his eyes, which would never close, seemingly watching Dazai Osamu throughout the night. The pristine white hospital bed sheets, combined with the sight of a beautiful youth with missing limbs, easily triggered a certain unsettling excitement. Mutilation is a form of horror, and horror can also be a kind of beauty. Yakimaru's entire body appeared to unfold like a person revealing themselves, laid out like a beautifully decorated box. Looking at his expressionless and indifferent face, reaching towards the warmth in his chest and the beating of his heart, one couldn't help but feel shaken by the meaning of his existence. When Mori-san came to check the room that night, he could only sigh, thinking children will always be children. Dazai-kun, make sure to give him a blanket. Dazai Osamu stretched an arm out from under his blanket, pulling the motionless Yakimaru closer and covering him with it. Feeling Dazai's movement, Yakimaru sat up and took the blanket to wrap around himself. Mori Ogai closed the door to the room and went back to rest. Staying at the Port Mafia isn't as safe as the clinic. Well, what can you do, he's just an unpopular, overworked boss. With Mori-san gone, Dazai Osamu poked his head out, gazing at those unreal gray-brown eyes. Yakimaru's will must have reached the limits of humanity. I want to sleep, Dororo. Don't lose. Good night. Sleep. Tomorrow, let's go laugh at that little guy, who's always so trusting of others. He will die. Falling into sleep beside the boy with the face of an angel, calm and serene, his soft brown hair spread out. White bandages wrapped around his right eye beneath the strands of hair. His skin lacked the healthy hue of blood. Unconsciously, on the bed next to Yakimaru, he let down all his guard, entrusting his safety to the other. The implication. Even if you killed him, he would smile and accept it. Yakimaru, without any reason, saw such an image and, as sleep approached, couldn't stop imagining Dororo. But the white life flame twisted his face in the outline. White like cotton candy, Dororo. So sweet. Yakimaru didn't want the dust to cling to her body, watching attentively as she drifted into a peaceful sleep. His dreams had lost their color, left with nothing but void. Rokudo Mukuro slowly walked in the human dreamscape beside him, leaving behind those beautiful dreams. He centered his attention on the Suribachi Street area, sensing the dreams of the people there. As expected, most of them had bleak and hopeless minds, beyond saving. A small number of them gritted their teeth, enduring for survival, dreaming of a clean and prosperous life, no different from the lower-class commoners struggling to survive in Italy. Those abandoned by society reside in places abandoned by society. In any nation, in any city, crime always takes root in the depths of human hearts, and the darker a person is, the less they can imagine the light. No, it's as if they have forgotten the light. The blue-haired youth's consciousness was like a mist, drifting through a dreamscape, not delving deep, searching for something. Then, he saw today's darkest dream. This gigantic dream came, capable of crushing everyone, with only its center revealing a fragile glow. The gloomy and oppressive aura was enough to suffocate one's spirit, radiating an intense and deadly presence. Any illusionist seeing such a dream would retreat 3 steps, worried about being contaminated. But Rokudo Mukuro was different. He couldn't help but reach out his hand to press against the opponent. The seemingly thin membrane was incredibly sturdy. The barrier of the mind was even more solid than walls of steel in the real world. Rokudo Mukuro clearly felt the dream's master sleeping deeply in the gloomy interior, in the dark void of the sky, the dimly lit land without light, flickering with a deep red evil light in a distant place, yet it seemed so close, like a shadow with a form, but unable to bite and swallow the will surrounded by darkness. Is this place hell? If it is hell, then why is it tolerating that out-of-place light? You also want to return from hell? After going through the illusory realm of the 6 paths of reincarnation, acknowledging the suffering of falling into the realm of beasts, Rokudo Mukuro silently laughs, deeply understanding the difficulty of emerging from the darkness. He had looks down on Yakimaru. Such a powerful spirit force is tied down. If released, it will unleash an unparalleled strength, enough to ignite the flame known as willpower. Rokudo Mukuro cannot imagine that someone like him could actually be ranked second in power, will the first being even more terrifying? Yokohama have so much hidden dragons and crouching tigers. After hesitating for a moment, Rokudo Mukuro heightened his vigilance and planned to enter the dream, to take a look. He used the mist illusion to conceal his figure, borrowing spiritual resonance, and with extreme difficulty, he hid within Yakimaru's world, which was filled with negative spiritual energy. As soon as he entered, Rokudo Mukuro encountered a massive spiritual pollution. His deep red eyes of reincarnation struggled to withstand the force of the demon god on behalf of the host. In his daze, it was as if he saw the truth hidden in the darkness. The 12 demon gods hide in the darkness, vague and unclear, only revealing fragments. The sacrifice Yakimaru hanging in the central of the dream. He breathes. He is sound asleep. He emitted a faint white glow, making Rokudo Mukuro understand the past events that had transpired with the other person. Threads of silk entwined around the boy, binding his limbs, cruelly separating it from his body. His head was tightly bound, forced to lift up, revealing a grotesque hollow beneath the peeled-off skin of his face. Rokudo Mukuro was deeply shaken, frowning as a strong sense of disgust and revulsion surged within him. This is a sacrifice. The more terrifying thing is that the illusionist felt that, under the influence of the dream, he also developed the thought of killing the other, as if the other was some sort of natural enemy that needed to be eliminated. No. The demon god has never been able to take Yakimaru's life. They took everything from this person that could be seized, delivering the divine punishment of a curse, weakening his strength, striking his spirit, but they couldn't kill him. The wrathful wails would only come from the demon god. Yakimaru did not die. He was connected to the 12 powers of the demon gods, surviving by absorbing their evil strength. Without eyes, he used the mind's eye. Without limbs, he used prosthetics. Without a straight back, he used artificial supports to hold his spine upright. From crawling to standing, it drained all of Jukai's abilities. What does this dream symbolize? Rokudo Mukuro, relying on his extraordinary sensory powers, sensed the lingering resentment of the 12 demon gods. Why do I feel like the monster that was sacrificed has instead become the sacrificial offering? Yakimaru, suspended in midair, was not someone pitiful in this dark world, but someone the very darkness itself that could not hinder. His breathing was entangled with fate, predetermined by destiny, a faint life force struggling, bound to the shackles of his body, hidden beneath, devoured by the power of the demon god. Before Rokudo Mukuro's eyes, everything turned black as he suppressed the mental corruption and tried to keep watching. The sacrificial offering stirred slightly. With every struggle, it was as if it brushed against life and death, and the youth was desperately trying to wake up. Discovering that Yakimaru's consciousness was awakening, instinctively rejecting outsiders, Rokudo Mukuro didn't intend to engage in a direct confrontation with him, so he retreated a step, choosing to leave this extremely broken owner's dream. This night had caused him immense mental exhaustion, rendering him unable to visit another dream. After Rokudo Mukuro timely escaped, new changes occurred in Yakimaru's spiritual world. In the depths of darkness, Yakimaru stood on a sacrificial altar in the void. Beneath his feet lay an even deeper shadow. The reflections of the 12 demon gods mirrored in his silhouette, even more terrifying than the demon gods themselves. The protagonist of Dororo, he is the heavenly child descended in response to the wishes of all beings. Though the anime does not mention this, the manga and game versions vaguely suggest it. He is highly likely to be a deity undergoing trials in the mortal world, either a reincarnated god or a reincarnation of a divine artifact. Some newcomers have considered this possibility, but none dare to bet on whether the anime includes such a benefit, as there's no real reward for winning that gamble. If you want to bear the responsibility of saving the world, whether you're a human or a god doesn't matter, for even gods will lose themselves because of mortals. He looked into the distance, bewildered and powerless, at his own dark world. How much longer? Before I can finally kill all of you. He wandered unconsciously, using his imagination to search day and night with limbs that could only be whole in fantasy. The rift in spacetime, which does not belong to this dimension, allows the Hounds of Tindalos to use an incomprehensible method to humanity to travel from the 21st century back to a world 460 million years ago. Those fortunate enough to avoid being tracked by them, such as Yakuran Gesso, who enjoys traveling through parallel worlds, are extremely lucky, as no one wants to experience the feeling of being devoured by such monsters in the memories of parallel worlds. Measured in hundreds of millions of years, the Hounds of Tindalos would take one day to begin their journey, and traveling back to Earth 460 million years ago would require 46 days. It stared intently ahead at the prey that continuously escaped, crying out in hunger. The Hounds of Tindalos could also be called the Hunters of Transmigrators. Anyone unfortunate enough to attempt crossing space-time and encounter them would be relentlessly pursued until death. 460 million years ago. On Earth, not long after its formation, a boy with the appearance of a high school student, his hair pink, sat on the ground eating the last coffee pudding he had brought along on short notice. His eyes were unfocused for a second, and the expression on his face was as though he had no will to live anymore. Realizing that he would run out of food before the monster could get him, he couldn't even enjoy the delicious coffee pudding. Saiki Kusua thought indifferently to himself. Seriously, how long is this life of running and hiding going to continue? Hasn't Kusuke figured out the pattern of their pursuit yet? I've finished my coffee pudding. It's about time I go back and find the person who brought this monster over. The so-called god of fantasy worlds, the legendary Kusuaemon, didn't want to admit that despite all his abilities, he couldn't deal with this incomprehensible, life-threateningly hideous monster. Just seeing it was unlucky enough to get chased down. Due to accidentally falling asleep and leaking his psychic powers, Saiki Kusua felt this was pure misfortune, as he had unintentionally traversed through space-time. In order to escape the Hounds of Tindalos hunting him across dimensions, he didn't even dare to go home. Can you blame him for being ugly? Chapter 25 End.